The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then...
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the Antichrist of professional wrestling!
David Arquette won the world title!
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, The Rock, they screwed us all.
Now you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat me! Goldberg steered Russo out of the cage.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Swerve. I'm your host, Vince Russo, and I have a special guest today, somebody I've been trying to get on the show for a while. You know, I got to tell you, with this social media thing, it's a big pain in my backside because while I go through social media, that's how I set up most of my interviews. So wow. When I want to interview people, I'll follow them. And then sometimes, like, I'll wait months for them to follow me back because that's how I get my connection to get them on the show. This is one of these people. I don't know what he was doing that I had to wait 6 months to get a stinking follow back, but let's forget that. He's here now, the one and only Mr. Ken Anderson. Mr. Anderson, how are you today?
I am fantastic. I got 2 cups of coffee, a big bottle of water. I'm ready to go.
You look great. You look great. Ken, you look like you're glowing now. I know you're living in Wisconsin again. Is that a Wisconsin tan?
There's no tan. There's no tan. I think I just have high blood pressure this morning or something like that. Maybe I'm a little flushed. I don't know.
Now Ken, you are back in Wisconsin, correct?
Minnesota. So I'm just over the border in Minnesota. I'm actually cities.
I wanted to ask you about that because I remember during TNA, I came to your house, or it was like a condo apartment type thing, right smack in the heart of New York City. Were you there at the time, Ken, because you were pursuing acting a little bit? Because I know through and through, like, you're a Wisconsin guy. I know your wife is from the same area. Was the move to New York for acting? Yeah,
absolutely. My agency was there at the time. And it was really a decision, do we go to New York or we go to LA? And I could live there, but I don't like LA at all. I just don't like the vibe, the way it feels out there. So we decided to go to, actually, my wife and I started traveling to New York a lot. And just, we would take a week and just vacation there and just walk around and see the sights. And we absolutely fell in love with it. So we were like, let's do this. And so we moved there for about 2.5 to 3 years. And loved every single minute of it. At some point, though, you know, it's super expensive to live there. It's one of the most expensive places in the country. Yeah. And at the time, I was getting a lot of auditions, but the auditions coming in were all self-taped. And I was like, I don't need to be here to put myself on tape. I could do that from Afghanistan if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so we at the time we were also no matter how awesome the city is, it gets very tiring. I mean, if you want to go get your hair cut, you got to map out 3.5 hours of your day. And
right.
Yeah. So
now, Ken, I remember, you know, is your wife from Minnesota?
She is. She's from a suburb of St. Paul. That's actually where we live now, in Woodbury, Minnesota.
Listen, I'm going to come clean to you because it doesn't matter, like, if you get hot at me or anything, because you can't do anything to me because we're 1,000 miles apart. I'm going to come clean to you right now, Ken. Listen, you got to understand, I'm a Long Island boy. I grew up on Long Island, New York. Listen, if you know Long Island girls, the Long Island girls are very tough, you know, and back then, you know, I mean, I went to high school, you know, Ken, in the late 70s, they had the high hair and they were very tough and like, they would just beat your ass. Right. So yeah. I went away to school in the Midwest, Ken. I went to Evansville, Indiana, and I got to be around the Midwestern girls.
Yep.
And yesterday was my 32nd year anniversary with my wife, Amy, who I met at college in Evansville, Indiana.
That's fantastic. Congrats.
What I'm getting at is when I came to your house, I absolutely, listen, Ken, I'm going to be honest with you. I absolutely fell in love with your wife. Because you want to talk about, listen, we're in the business, Ken, of like, there's a lot of hot women, the divas are hot, the knockouts are hot. Yep. Ken's wife was like the girl next door, Ivory Snow girl, that just beautiful, natural, Midwestern look. And man, like, I got to be honest with you, Ken, like as soon as I saw her, I was like, we have to get her on TV. We could definitely do an angle with her on TV, but I could tell, I kind of threw a couple of hints out there and I could tell you were hesitant. And listen, Ken, I've been around a lot of couples in wrestling and it didn't turn out so good. So
it never ends well.
Yeah, maybe it was a good thing that we didn't put her on television.
Honestly, I would have been for it. I don't think she was for it. One of the things that I absolutely loved about her when I met her, I was doing independence, trying to make it to WWE, trying to make it to TNA, and she knew nothing about wrestling. And to this day, she could care less. I mean, she supports me because I love it. She doesn't know what's going on TV, who's the champ. She doesn't know any of that stuff. All she knows is that that's what I do for a living. That's my passion. And she supports me in that way, but she could care less.
Now, Ken, let me ask you this, because my relationship is very similar. But like, Ken, I did that by design. Like again, my wife's from the Midwest, the girl next door, so innocent. Man, I kept her a million miles away from the wrestling business. I never wanted her to know what was going on. I never wanted her to know what I was going through because it would have been just way too much for her. So did you purposely do the same thing, Ken?
No, I don't think so. Because when I first started at WWE, she came around with me quite a bit. She'd come on the road for me a lot. And actually that was by design because I would come off the road and here she would think, I think people generally think that wrestlers just have it easy. We're all just having a gay old time, traveling around the world. It's just shits and giggles, Mm-hmm. And I actually would come home and I would be exhausted and I'd have that 2 days off. And you immediately have to start thinking, okay, do I sleep now? I'm exhausted. Do I unpack my bag and wash my stuff right now? I have to pack it in the next day and a half, that kind of stuff. And I used to bring her on the road. I'd say, all right, you're coming on a 5-day loop with me, and you're going to do everything that I do. So when I get up in the morning and go to the gym, go eat breakfast, you're going to be there. When I go to the gym, you're going to be there. When I go to the building at noon, you're going to be there until I have to be there at 11 o'clock at night. Then we're going to go get a bite to eat. Then we're going to get in the car. We're going to drive 3.5, 4 hours to the next city.
Yeah.
And on the third day, she would just like, is it okay if I just stay back here?
Yeah.
And then it'd be cool for a couple months. She would remember for a couple months and then she'd forget again.
Yeah. Well, listen, you have to be a special animal to do what you guys do. There's no question about that. But here, another thing, a lot has changed in the Anderson household. I remember when I came to New York, I think there were a couple of dogs running around. The dogs were the kids. Now, we have real kids. And not only do we have real kids, we have twins. And from what I see, what I gather, they're about to go into their terrible twos.
They're about 20 months old. And it's like the terrible 20 months.
How's that working out for you over there, Ken, with the twins?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's I get up in the morning. When I'm home, I get to get up in the morning with them. I get them out of their cribs. They're real happy kids. They're just, I mean, tell you what, sometimes when you want to just sit there and watch the news or whatever, and I just become a jungle gym. Both of them want to sit on my lap, and one is mushing the other one in the face and they're crying. And
Ken, you want to hear a funny story? I always remember this. When you say I become a jungle gym, I always remember this. I remember my son, Will, he's my oldest son. He's 28 years old now. But Ken, I can remember before he was born, the original Nintendo had just come out. So it was just me and my wife. I got into the original Nintendo. Yeah. And I can remember the specific day where, I was playing a Rygar. That was the only game I played on Nintendo. I could play Rygar, and I can remember my son Will climbing on my head like I was wearing a hat, and like that was the last time I ever played a video game 28 years ago.
I try playing video games, and it's just like you said, they're just circling your head, climbing on my back. They're mushing each other. They're crying. And then the other thing is the things that you don't want them to have, the controllers, the remotes, my phone, all that stuff. You set it down, you turn your back, there's a homing device in their brain. Signal to them, the phone is down, go get it right now. And go push all the buttons. And my daughter actually, one day she got my Xbox controller, and next thing I know, my wife says, "Did you buy a game for $60 off the Xbox, Xbox Live?" And I said, "No." And I went in and I looked. She had purchased the $60.
Oh my God.
That I would never play in a million years. I called Xbox and I explained to them what happened. The lady laughed and she took it off my account.
That is funny. Now, Ken, I gotta listen. I went through Ken, I gotta be honest with you. When I come on here, like I try to talk about wrestling as little as possible, to be honest with you. Like I'm more interested in you as a person, but wrestling is who you are, and we're gonna get into that. But here's one thing that really surprised me about you, Ken. I'm wearing my throwback Butkus jersey today. I know, listen, you're in Wisconsin. I don't even have to ask. I know you live, breathe, and eat the Green Bay Packers. Ken, it's funny, man. I'm in Denver now, and it's the same thing with the Broncos. I mean, it's ridiculous, but there's even a more rich history with the Green Bay Packers. This is what surprised me about you, Ken. When I work with you, bro, you're a guy. I mean, you're a big guy, always in great physical shape. I mean, when you look at Ken Anderson, you see an athlete. This guy is an athlete. I was very surprised, bro, to see that in high school, you were a swimming and track guy and not really a football guy. Like, that was really odd to me. What was that about?
So I never got into football until I was a freshman in high school. I never even watched a game. I mean, I'd watch games occasionally. I just sort of fell in love with it when I was in high school. Now, I wanted to be on the football team, but every summer my parents made me get a job, and that job, football practice started in August at the end of summer, and I had a job that I had to do, and I worked from 6 a.m. until 4 or 5 o'clock at night or whatever. I don't even remember what the hours were, but it was I wasn't able to go to football practice in the summer, and it was just like, well, I'm going to do this. And I loved swimming. I was always a swimmer growing up. Was never like super good at it. Never, went to state or anything like that. But I loved it. And it was always a good way to stay in shape, obviously. And so I sort of tried my hand at track and field. Actually, one of the things that I really got into in high school, my freshman year, it was after I got bullied a couple times. I went over to one of my really good friends' house, and her father was the world champion stick fighting champion for his age group. And so I was talking to him about it, and he's like, grab my shirt. And I grabbed his shirt, and he put me in a pretzel or something like that. And it's like, that's what you do to them if they do that to you. And he started showing me things. And from that point on, I would go over to his house at least twice a week, and we'd go in his basement and he would just show me stuff. And I did that for about 5 to 6 years. So that was like before mixed martial arts was actually mixed martial arts, because he was teaching me everything. He was teaching me Hapkido, Aikido, Judo, Karate, Taekwondo. And
now, Ken, where did I want to ask you? I got to write myself a note. Ken, I'm getting old, so I want to make sure I don't forget this question. But I got to ask you a question before that question. I also read, Ken, and this made sense to me, man, because listen, I'm doing a lot of podcasting now. I'm getting started in a little bit of radio now, what I always wanted to do. And then one thing I was reading about you was that, you announced, some of the games, for your high school. And when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I believe that Ken has a, you got a great voice, bro. When I read that, I'm like, yeah, I mean, Kenny would be a great announcer. Was that something you wanted to pursue, or was that just a high school gig?
No, actually, I used to go to it's interesting how that whole announcing thing came to be, but that was something that I was pursuing, and I can't remember exactly how many times I did it, but I would go and do job shadowing at the big radio station in Green Bay and the big radio station, it's a little radio station in my town and things like that. I did that several times. That was something that I was really interested in pursuing, and it started because I took a mass media class in high school as an elective, and one of the things we had to do was make a fictitious product and then sell it 3 different ways. So I chose to do a radio ad, a print ad, and a commercial that we shot. And it was for Invincible underwear, because this kid was always getting, they'd always give him Grundies, whatever, and wear his underwear, and they just tormented the guy. So I was like, Invincible underwear, this kid needs Invincible underwear. So, I did the radio ad and have you ever experienced a problem like this? Then you need Invincible underwear. And I remember my teacher, the teacher at the time, said, you need to announce the basketball games. And so she went to the principal, played the tape for him, and then the principal came and said, hey, we want you to do this. So I started doing it. I think it was my sophomore year in high school. I did it sophomore, junior, senior year. So, and then it's funny because that's where I came up with saying the last name twice.
Yeah, I read about that.
Then fast forward, 15 years later, I'm at OVW. Paul Heyman says, go out to the ring and introduce yourself. And I just threw the second Anderson at the end of it. And I came to the back, and people were like, I had a 30-minute match that night with Brent Albright, I think. And I came to the back, and it wasn't like, hey, man, good match. It was, when you said your last name twice, that was awesome.
That was it, man. Yeah. I've been there and done that, and I've had a few. Like, listen, man, I was blessed to be there the first time. Rock referred to himself in third person, and like I remember it because like as soon as he did it, I'm like, that's it. I was there when Austin cut the 316 promo on Jake. Same thing, Ken. Like there are those times when you like, that's it. And I can clearly see when you did the name the 2 times that was it. Hey, Ken, I got to ask you this. Now I'm a little curious. Listen, TNA for a second, and then I'll backtrack a little bit. But obviously, Taz left not too long ago. I got to be honest with you. I was thrilled. I had no idea Pope was going to be an announcer. I put the TV on one day. There was my boy, the Pope. I was thrilled to death. I love the guy. But when that opening occurred with Taz leaving, did it ever go through your mind to maybe audition for that role and segue the career into announcing? Or did you feel, I mean, obviously you got a lot of years left in the tank wrestling-wise.
I didn't actually think of it, but it is something that I feel like I'm not as quick on my feet with things. I don't know. I guess I'd have to try it out a few times at home or in a studio. I don't know. That's something that I have to think about. I'm actually coming to I'm over the hump as far as my wrestling career goes. I think. I mean, I feel fantastic right now. I do feel like I can keep going, but I'm 39 years old. I'm not getting any younger, so I do need to start thinking about what am I going to do next? How am I going to transition? Do I want to stay in the wrestling industry? People ask me all the time, what are you going to do after wrestling? And I'm like, well, there's tons of things that you can do within the wrestling industry that don't involve falling down.
Right.
I can be a manager. I can be a mouthpiece. I can work in talent relations or creative or things like that. So,
you got to go. Listen, I'm telling you, based on experience, when the wrestling career is over, you got to go into the Ken Anderson business. No. You listen, bro. Ken. There's got to be a point in time where you walk away from the politics of wrestling and you do what you want to do. And I'm going to talk to you about that because, listen, man, I do like a podcasting channel. I don't just have this show. I have shows every single day, all different type theme shows. It's an entire channel. Bro, you would be an unbelievable podcaster. I'll tell you right now, like I just brought onto my channel Bill DeMott because I know Bill and I knew Bill would be terrific. Bro, you're another guy. You definitely have a future in that with your voice and your personality and your sense of humor. Man, I think that's right up your alley.
Well, I thank you. And it's funny you say that because I actually I just started season 2 of my podcast.
You have where is this thing hiding?
It's on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can go to DVMPE, the DVM Podcast Empire, DVMPE.com. And the thing is it's not about wrestling. I went to, there are so many great wrestling podcasts and people that have done way more than I have in the business that are doing fantastic, like yourself, that are doing fantastic work in this realm. Everybody's got it sewn up. And I really wanted to do something like a podcast. And I approached a guy at a comic book convention. And we sort of it was funny because we saw each other. He recognized me because he's a wrestling fan. And I looked at him because I saw that he had a podcast empire or whatever. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey man, I want to do a podcast." And he sort of just, another wrestling podcast. Sure. And I said, "But I don't want to talk about wrestling. I want to talk about politics, religion, sex, things that you're not supposed to talk, the things that are the most important aspects of people's lives." But
Absolutely.
Somehow we've been dished this idea that we can't talk about it.
Right.
I want to get people on that disagree with me, and I want to have calm, rational conversations with them and just talk about stuff, talk about ideas.
I have a similar show, Ken, believe it or not. One of the shows I do is, everything but freaking wrestling. So,
Yep.
and it's a rule. We don't talk about wrestling. But Ken, I got to ask you, do you promote this a lot? Because I never see you talking about it on social media or anything else like that. I mean, you gotta get that out there. I didn't know about that till you just told me.
Yeah, I do from time to time. When we do an episode, I'll usually post it across my channels. But you're right. I do have to do a better job of actually, marketing it. That's one thing that's never been a strong suit. I don't like patting myself on the back. It took me a really long time to take my first selfie, like a really long time. It used to drive me insane. But something that, look, if I take a picture of a cup of coffee, it'll get viewed a few times. If I take a picture of me holding a cup of coffee, it gets viewed a bunch more times, and that's just the way the game operates.
Yeah, Ken, I'm like that. Listen, I could podcast all day long, and I could talk for hours, and I'll never get tired of talking. But I'm kind of like you when I have to promote it. Listen to my podcast. And in my case, Ken, I have to charge to subscribe because I have to make a living. Yep. I mean, it's so I'm hustling, and that's the part. I mean, I totally get that. That's the hardest, most difficult part for me. Ken, when you were talking about now, I think it was your one of your girlfriends, her father's was kind of teaching you how to grapple a little bit before there was such a thing as MMA. Was this your introduction to wrestling, or did it come before that?
No, it actually came after that, way after that. Well, I mean, I did watch wrestling for a brief little stint in the 80s when it was on Sunday mornings. WWF was on Sunday mornings, and Saturday night's main event was I don't even remember. Was it on every week or was it on every?
No, that was a special. Like that was like once every 3 months or something like that. The NBC show you're talking about, right?
Yeah. And once in a while, my dad would let me stay up and we'd watch it together.
Yeah.
I think it was on after Saturday Night Live or in.
No, it would replace Saturday Night Live like maybe once every 3. They probably did it quarterly. They probably did it 4 times a year.
And so that was my introduction. They had the cartoon on Sunday mornings. I watched that, and then I sort of fell out of it. It just wasn't a thing in my town. People didn't watch wrestling. People didn't talk about it, and I fell into it's all fake. It's a bunch of guys rolling around on the floor with each other wearing tights and baby oil and all that stuff. So fast forward, I'm 20 years old. I'm at my friend's house. we're hanging out, and he always wore wrestling shirts and things like that, and I always give him a hard time about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "We're gonna watch Raw," and we're not watching Raw. I'm not watching that crap. No way. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, there's the guy on there that you're gonna love. And just watch. So whatever. I'm drinking beer. We're hanging out. I'm sitting on the couch, kind of sulking, and all of a sudden I hear this glass break, and I see this bald-headed son of a bitch driving to the arena in a pickup truck with a six-pack of beer on his lap. "Get the hell out of my way!" He yells. And I just I come from a blue-collar, small town.
Yeah. People
drive pickup trucks and drink beer. And I was sort of transfixed on this guy for a while, and then all right, well, I can watch just to see what he would do every week, I guess. And so then I started watching, and then pretty soon I'm getting sucked into all the characters. It was Undertaker and Kane and all these characters that were so much larger than life and colorful, and I was like, wow, I've been missing this. I've been missing out for a long time. So.
Yeah, Ken, I'm listen, man, I go back a little further, and I'm a little older than you, bro, but I think I'm like 15 years older than you. So I don't know if you'll remember this far back, but I had a very similar experience where, Ken, I was like 11 or 12 years old, and back then on Long Island, wrestling was on UHF. I'll never forget, bro. People don't understand. Kids today, there was Yeah, Ken, there was channel 2, 4, 7, and UHF. People don't forget those days.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm looking for anything to watch on UHF, and all of a sudden, I mean, Ken, can you imagine this as the first vision and the introduction to wrestling to a 11, 12-year-old kid? It was the Valiant Brothers and Lou Albano, and they were cutting a promo, Ken. And I was like, what the F is this? And when you talk about the characters and the larger than life, I don't care what anybody says, Ken, if you're not a wrestling fan, like I didn't know it at the time. At that time, you didn't even want to watch wrestling. I don't care what anybody says. The greatest 5-star match in the world is not going to draw you if you're not a wrestling fan. But I use the same words you use, Ken, all the time. When you see that character that's larger than life, and it's the old, who the F is this? That's how you get hooked.
Yep. Well, and I think it's true just in entertainment, right? And I think UFC figured out a couple of years ago, hey, we need to borrow from wrestling, because what do you see now? You see the characters, you see the backstories, you see their whatever it is going on behind the scenes. They don't like each other or whatever. That's the stuff that sells. Dave Lagana told me one time, I asked him, why do we start every single wrestling show out? And this is something that, I would see on dirt sheets and stuff like that, or people would complain all the time. Why does every wrestling show have to start out with an in-ring promo that's 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long? Why isn't there more wrestling? And Dave said, one of the greatest matches ever on Monday Night Raw was Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle. It was a 3 or 4 segment match. It was the first time they had done that in a long time. And it got the worst rating. Mm-hmm. And this. I mean, I'm speaking to the choir here.
Anytime. It's never happened any other way with me with all 3 companies. A wrestling match opening a wrestling show will always draw a lower rating than a talking segment. I never had one instance where that did not ring true. And also what that's become, though, Ken, I think in wrestling is people are used to that. You know what I'm saying? People are used to, we're going to see that promo first. We're going to set up the entire night. But it used to drive me crazy, Ken, because, I used to hear all the time, oh, we need to start with action. Let's open up with a match. And I would sit there and, say, okay, it's going to be a lower rating. Do you want to start the show with a lower rating and then play catch up the whole night? But, I used to have to do it to appease people. But a wrestling match will never outdraw a talking segment. I don't care what it is for the first match. And that's facts. That's not my opinion. That's facts.
Yep. And it's interesting that you say that, because when I first started watching, in 96, 97 or whatever it was, I could care less about the wrestling matches. In fact, when I would get pay-per-views, I would be pissed off because there wasn't more talking. There wasn't more gaga. It was just all wrestling. And it took me a while to really start appreciating that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I get it.
I was surprised to read this. Now, I did not know this, but according to reading about your history, and listen, I know we can't believe everything Wikipedia says, but I tend to believe this is true. I did not realize, bro, that before the WWE, you actually worked some TNA explosion matches, which means I was there. I saw you. I don't remember it at all. And then from what I'm reading, there were some talks with Jeff Jarrett, but it never mounted into anything. And then, you started in the WWE. What happened during that time?
So I remember the first time, I can't remember exactly who I worked. I think the guy's name was Big Bully Douglas. First time I came down and did a TNA dark match. I worked the match. I went through the curtain, and I remember Jerry Jarrett was sitting at the little. There was a little monitor and some kind of switchboard he had or something like that. And I remember he did this, and he asked me to come over to him, and he said, "Who trained you?" And basically had some nice things to say, or whatever, and said like, keep it up. I like what I see. And what's interesting is in the wrestling industry, I had done probably at least 15 dark matches for WWE. And I probably did 5 or 6 for TNA. And you don't hear anything. People say like, it's nice to hear please tell me that I shit the bed.
Right.
The thing is it's the silence is deafening in the wrestling industry. And the thing is it's not a personal thing. It's just Vince Russo has a million other things on his plate to think about than that, jobber guy from Minnesota who's trying to get a job. Like, unless I wowed you, which I didn't, I get it. But yeah, there were so many times where I would come and I would get positive feedback. And I remember the last time that I worked for TNA before I got hired for WWE, I did the match, and then a bunch of the wrestlers went to Bar Nashville, and Jeff Jarrett happened to be there, and he called me over and we talked, and there was this new faction that he was starting up. The guys wore like all black. Chad Collier, I think, was in it. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, I can't either.
He was thinking that, that was sort of something that he pitched to me. He's like, I think I could see you being in that group, and that would be the way that I would bring you in. He gave me his number in the office, and I called every Wednesday for about the next probably 6 months. It wasn't every Wednesday, but it was like at least every other, because I didn't want to be a pain in the ass. But
right.
So yeah, I called, never got through, which is typical. Again, it's hard to get hold of people in the wrestling industry. Everybody's busy, and then when you have a little bit of downtime, the last thing you want to do is work.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then finally, I had been getting sort of the same deal over at WWE, and finally it was like Arn Anderson, Tommy Dreamer, Paul Heyman all sort of came together at once and said, hire this guy, and that was how I got hired over at WWE.
Ken, I want to ask you this because I want to have a conversation with you about this from a talent perspective. I'm real interested in hearing this. Okay, now when you got the contract with WWE, you started at OVW. Okay, and from what I'm reading, again, you verify if this is right or not. Your first, the first person you were working under at OVW was Jim Cornette. And I was reading that basically, Jim Cornette, like kind of said to you, he didn't see anything in you. Mm-hmm. Is that true so far?
Yes, to a degree. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Can I have to ask you this, like from a talent viewpoint now? Okay. Because like I was the guy on the other side. When a Jim Cornette now, who's in charge of OVW, calling the shots at OVW, says to a Ken Anderson, basically, I don't see anything in you, kid. And a Ken Anderson, is, to himself, you're wrong. I see a lot in me. I'm going to make it in this business. I'm determined to make it in this business. But when like the guy in charge feels that way, at that point as a talent, like what can you possibly do? What do you try to do to change that person's mind?
For me, it was extremely liberating because I now knew that I had nothing to lose. And that's sort of the way that I approached it. I was like, I hadn't really talked. I hadn't been given the opportunity to talk. I knew that was one of my strong suits. However, the stuff we would do promos in camp every day. And, it's different when you're not in front of a live crowd. You're in front of just a few of the boys and the girls. And, it's hard to pull that real deep emotion. And for me, I've always been an entertainer, like since the time I was a little kid. So when I get in front of a crowd, I can talk about it in the back. We can talk about what we're going to do. I'm not going to put the same emphasis, the same stank on it that I'm going to put out in the ring. And then when I get out in the ring, it's just like I turn into a different person. Mm-hmm. And that was the deal. He gave me an opportunity to first of all, Steve Kern came down and said, "Look, your work is great. You don't stand out to me. You look like a normal guy." I had, my normal hair color at the time. He's like, do something different. You should, as a pro wrestler, you should be able to walk into a restaurant, sit down, you're having dinner, and people all around you are going to go, I don't necessarily know who that guy is or what he does, but he does something.
Yep.
Something cool. And so I went home and I dyed my hair blonde that night, bleached it blonde. I came back. Jim was pissed. He was pissed off about it, and he's like, "That's it. I'm sticking you with the Blonde Bombers." And it was Tank Toland and Chad Wicks and Jillian Hall at the time, and stuck me with those guys, And he gave me an opportunity that night to get in the ring and cut a promo, and I cut a promo on him, and I just lost my shit. Mm-hmm. And I got to the back, and he was like, "Where's that guy been?" And so then he started seeing a little bit more, and then Paul Heyman had actually been coming down. He would come down maybe every month, maybe every 2 months, and do promo class. He'd be there for 2 days. You'd go in on the first day, you'd cut a promo, he'd critique it, you'd go home, you'd work on it, you'd come back the next day, and you'd do it again. And it would always be, I'd go in there, I'd cut the promo the first day, he'd give me a couple little critiques. I'd go on the second day, and he'd go, "Okay, thank you, liked it." And I'd be like, "That's it? Like, please give me some more feedback." And he, "Nope, liked it. That's it." I'm like, this guy fucking hates me. Sorry if I shouldn't be swearing, but
no, it's okay.
I was like, this guy hates me. That's it. And then Jim got fired eventually, and Paul Heyman came in, and he pulled me he said, "I need to talk to you." And he pulled me into the office, and he said, "You are the next guy out of here. I promise you're the next guy out of here." He said, "I've been a fan of yours since I saw you working out in the ring at WWE at one of the shows where you were an extra." He said, I love your promos. I always have. I'm going to do so much stuff with you that they're going to have to see you. They will see you, and you'll get pulled up." And I was like, you know what they say in the wrestling business, believe, none of what you see, or not half of what you see and none of what you hear.
Yep.
So I was just like, okay, well, that's nice to hear those words, but they're just words right now. And literally that night, he gave me the 30-minute match. It was a 1-hour program. He gave me a 30-minute match with Brent Albright, and I had like 3 backstage segments. And 5 weeks later, I got a call. Hey, they want to see you in Columbus, Ohio to, possibly do a dark match. I go to Columbus. I get booked in the match against Funaki. It's going to be a dark match. Funaki's going over. Go through all this stuff. But they said, "We want you to do your intro." And I'm standing backstage doing push-ups, and I see Vince walk up to the gorilla position. Now, Vince, this, never goes up and watches dark matches, especially dark match. He might go up there and watch Velocity or Sunday Night Heat. Mm-hmm. He never goes up to watch dark matches. So I immediately started thinking, And then next person that walked up to me was Dave Lagana, and he said, "There's been a change." And I immediately thought, like, they're going to cut the match. But, okay, here's my brave face, whatever. That's stuff happens in the wrestling business. And he said, actually, we need to come up with a finisher for you because you're going to go over. This is no longer a dark match. It's going to be a televised event or televised match, and welcome aboard. And he stuck out his hand and shook my hand and was like, "That's it. You're hired." And I have to thank Steve Lombardi for that one, because that day, earlier on in the day, I went in and then they asked me to cut a promo. And Steve was like, maybe you could say this, this, and that. And he was giving me some ideas, and I was trying to think and trying to put some stuff in my head. And I just said, you know what, let's just do it. And I had wrestled for 6 years on the indies, done a ton of promos and stuff like that. So I just pulled from all those different places, and I cut a promo, and Steve looked at me and he goes, I'm going to go talk to Vince right now. And so anyway, sorry for that long-winded explanation, but yeah.
You know what's so funny about you bring up Steve Lombardi? And I don't want to get sidetracked because I have a lot of questions if but I do have ADD. So you brought me down another road now. Yeah, you brought me down another road now, which I have to bring up. You know what drives me crazy when you bring up Steve Lombardi? Okay, this I'm going to say it. This fictitious WWE Hall of Fame. Okay, that, one guy makes the decision whether you're in or not, and you're either on his good list or you're either on his shit list. But you say Steve Lombardi, and I worked with Steve. I know what Steve has done for the WWF, going all the way. Bro, we're talking decades and decades, and I know Steve Lombardi. I love Steve Lombardi. Bro, the fact that the Brooklyn Brawler is not in the Hall of Fame because of his won and loss record. I don't understand that. Somebody needs to explain to me. We're writing wins and losses. This guy's been with the company forever, has done so much in front of the scenes, behind the scenes. If you put him in there, it'll be the highlight of the guy's life, like a Howard Finkel moment.
Absolutely.
And it's is Steve Lombardi not in the Hall of Fame because the Brooklyn Brawler lost more matches than he won? You know what I mean?
It shouldn't have anything to do with it. Like you said, it's fake. It's fictitious. It's.
But I always think of that guy. I always turning on the TV and seeing the Brooklyn Brawler, and then I know what he did behind the scenes when I was there, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And a guy like him, it would absolutely make his life. And I'm like, my God, those are the guys you need to put in the Hall of Fame.
That guy is responsible for so many people. I know he's responsible for a lot of the success that Cena, not directly responsible. Obviously, Cena is responsible for his success. But he would just, I remember being backstage when I first started there, and he would just pull me aside and say, just pick apart my promos. He would tell me, hey, make sure when you're standing up on that turnbuckle, you just turn your head a little bit like this. And,
the nuances, the little things that make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And he told me, he would do that with Cena. Cena would sit back there and just talk to him and just pick his brain. And I always found it interesting, all the boys in the business know what Steve Lombardi has done for the company, know what kind of person he is, know his work ethic. I mean, and I think too many wrestlers that come into the business don't take the time to seek out people like Brawler, the camera guys, the sound guys, because here's the deal. In my opinion, those guys have been there. They're always there. It's a revolving door of wrestlers. We all get fired and then rehired and fired and rehired. And they've seen everybody come through the door, get their rocket ship shoved up their butt, hit the big slide coming down, then get out the door. They've seen it over and over and over again.
Yep.
They know what works. And so, my suggestion for people would be to get out, talk to those people.
Yeah.
First of all, they're not worried about losing their job to you.
Right. Yeah, bro, not for anything. And, this isn't a personal thing. It's just a factual thing. I mean, the fact that a Sunny is in the Hall of Fame, that literally, when you look at her career, she was there for a cup of coffee, and a guy that's been there literally for decades. It's that just blows my mind. Okay, let's get off Steve Lombardi. We put Lombardi over enough. Okay,
yeah.
All right, Ken.
We love you, Steve.
We love you, Steve. I do. And I respect the heck out of him.
No,
Tell me about the first meeting with Austin now. Here's the guy you saw on TV. Holy crap. He was, I had that moment. I have to tell you, Ken, and you'll remember this name, but again, a little bit before your time. But can you leave me, bro? You there, Ken?
the dog just pushed the door open, and the kids are coming down the steps right now to eat breakfast. So
Do you got to go for a second?
no.
Oh. Ken, I had this moment with me, the surreal moment, like, because listen, we're all marks. The mark in us is never going to leave.
I always say, like, I was such a mark that I decided to shave my legs, wear baby oil and tights for a living. Like that.
There you go. And my Austin moment was, I'll never forget it, bro. And I know you're going to know who it is. Remember the big cat Ernie Ladd?
Yeah.
I mean, Ken, when I go back to, like, I was probably in 8th grade at the time. I'm not kidding you, bro. I used to put a penny on my thumb and tape my thumb up then. And like when the bell rings and you got to go to your next class and the halls are filled with people, bro, I just used to stick the thumb in people. That was the influence that Ernie Ladd had on me. And I remember the first time I met him, it was the Ralph Cramden humna, 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 humna. And Kenny, here's the thing I'll never forget. He shook my hand. Bro, his hand wrapped around my wrist like the biggest hands I ever saw on a human being. That's enough about me and the big cat. Tell me about now Austin's there. Tell me about that.
Well, I had met him a bunch of times, and he was always really nice to me. But I just, I never really had a reason to talk to him. I wasn't going to be that Mark guy or whatever. So I just, say my piece and that'd be it. And then one day I landed, I was on my way up to Vancouver. I landed in Portland or Seattle or something like that on a layover. And I checked my phone, and there's a message. It's a missed call, and it's Steve. Hey, Ken, Steve Austin here. Got your number from somebody in the office. And he goes, I saw your match with old Batista the other night. I liked the shit out of it.
Right.
And, I wanted to talk to you about it, man. Tell you a couple things, little things. And he was like, give me a call. And so I called him, and I was shaking. Here I am. I've been in the WWE for 2 years now.
Yeah.
I pretty much don't get too starstruck when I meet people, but that's the guy for me, And he's calling me, and he wants to shoot the shit and give me some advice. And I called him, and he had just some fantastic advice. And then, for a while there, I actually talked to him pretty regularly. And he would literally dissect my matches over the phone, or he would come to the show. We'd be in LA. He would come to the show, and he would, let's go to catering. Let's sit in front of that monitor and let's watch your match.
What does that say about Steve Austin? Ken, let's not lie. I don't lie on this show. I don't pull any punches on this show. We're in a business of a lot of it is built on paranoia. A lot of it is built on protect my spot. A lot of it is built on, cock blocking people that really deserve to be there because, you're afraid, of losing that spot. The people that rise above that are the people that are 100% confident in themselves and kind of like, you're going to take my spot, kid. Come take my spot. Let's see what happens. But I want people to understand that, because Austin taking you under your wing just speaks volumes about the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a good human being. He has nothing to prove, nothing that he has to do for anybody or anything in the business. But his mind is just constantly working, and that's just the kind of guy that he is. And I listen to his podcast from time to time, and you can just tell that he's a genuine human being.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, talking about the afraid of stealing my spot thing, come take my job or whatever, if you can do it. One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was from Jim Cornette. The day that I got to OVW, we were watching tape, and he paused it at some point, and he said, listen, if you people know of somebody that you've worked with on the indies, somebody that's out there that is talented, that could benefit, that this company could benefit from having them, you might as well admit to yourself and the rest of the world that you suck, and you're worried that they're going to take your spot if you don't do everything in your power to try to get them hired and try to get them at least seen by some.
Yeah.
And that's, you're right.
Yeah, it's a funny business, Ken, because here's the thing. Listen, Cornette like hates me, and listen, Kenny, I don't have an issue with Jim Cornette at all. It's a one-sided feud.
I don't think he likes me either, to be honest with you. So.
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing that I want to say, Ken, because here's why it's a funny business. I respect the fact that Cornette came to you and as the guy in charge basically said, I don't see anything in your kid. Basically told you. Because Ken, here's where, bro, so much of the heat so much of my heat in the business came from this. There would be times, Ken, where Vince and I wrote the TV alone for a very long time. And it was during those meetings where I would learn and know Vince's true feelings on all of the talent. And like Kenny, I would know if a guy was never going to get the opportunity, if Vince just absolutely hated him, if he was spinning, like I would know that.
Sure.
And what I did, Kenny, was I realized, listen, man, you guys are doing this for a living. This is your bread and butter. This is your job. So like when one of the boys would come up with me that fell in that category of, bro, Vince doesn't see anything in you. I could stand on my head. I'm not going to change his mind. When I would be approached by somebody like that, I would tell them because I knew they had families. This was their livelihood. This was their life. I wanted them to know what they were up against so they could make some kind of a decision. Either have a meeting with the guy, either find another line of work, whatever, but I wanted them to know what they were dealing with. And 9 times out of 10, by telling talent something they didn't want to hear, that's where Vince Russo got the heat. And that's why it's such a weird business, because I used to put myself in their shoes. If Vince McMahon doesn't like me, I would like to know that.
Absolutely.
And that's why like wrestlers are such a rare breed, because man, Ken, like they
People
just
are tender.
What's that?
People are tender.
Yeah. It's
and like you said, people are always asking, did you see my match? What did you think? And if you tell them anything other than it was freaking awesome, then you get a bunch of excuses or like, well, did you see this one part that I think was good? Well, it was good. You know that part was good.
Yeah, Ken, and Cornette is so dead on, but Cornette too, I mean, for him to give you that advice, that is the small percentage, because I'll tell you, man, I've sat here now and I've watched the WWE ratings go down for 15 straight years. There was one year in there where it was a bleep tick up. 15 straight years it's gone down. And on the outside looking in, I know, bro, when you're cock blocking good people that can help, and people that deserve to be there, and people that can turn this around, and you're cock blocking them to protect your spot, and the same people are working there making the same decisions, it's not going to turn around. And like, Ken, that's so like weird to me, because what company in the world doesn't try to hire the best people so they can be better?
It's a mind-boggling predicament that the wrestling industry is in, that I want to work with good people. I want to have good wrestlers to work with. I want to have good writers. I want to have.
It makes you better.
Yeah, totally. And I don't want us to sit around and coddle each other and say, "Oh, that was a fantastic match." No, I know what was good. You know the shit that was good. It's good to every once in a while get a pat on the back or an attaboy, but I would prefer that you come up to me and tell me like, "Hey, you could have done this better. This better, this better." Yeah. It's just a weird business.
Ken, I want to ask you about another WWE talent that you worked with and you did a little bit of a program with, and I'm not sure mind-wise where he was at the time. Tell me what it was like working with Sean. And was Sean in a good place when you were working with him?
I got the sense that Sean never liked me. So when I worked with Taker, I was working with Taker for a long time over on SmackDown, right? And I would do little things and the little things that I was being told to do by Vince. That like when you're in the corner, the old school wrestling was you see a guy in the corner getting punched and he would just sit there and take it and take it and take it. And, you know, somebody said to me, hey, in a real fight, what would you do? You'd cover up. And not every fight looks pretty, and it's not. And so I started using that, and I tried. Like, I hate watching wrestling that looks like a ballet.
I'm like you, bro. Listen, I listen. People got so upset with Dana White's comment about wrestling being fake. Watch some of the matches, and one of the things that's my pet peeve, bro. There is nobody on the face of this planet that would get punched in the face 10 times with his arms by his side. Nobody would have in a million years. But go ahead, Ken. Yeah.
So then I would start to do things like that. Taker would be teeing off on me and stuff, and I'd cover up. I'd push him away. I'd try to get away from him. You know, he'd do something to me. I'd hang on to the ropes and make him like stomp me to then pull me away. Things like that. And I remember coming back to the locker room and him saying, man, he goes, keep doing that stuff because it's unique and not a lot of people do it. And it sets you apart. Mm-hmm. But he said, be careful because you're going to work with some people down the road, maybe on the other side, that aren't going to like that, aren't going to appreciate that the way that I do. And for some reason, in my head, I was just like, nope, this is the way I'm going to do it. And that's it. And so when I worked with Sean, I would do that. He'd chop me in the corner and I'd cover up and he'd be like, stop covering up on me. And I'm like, I'm not covering up. I'll give it to you. Just, give me a shot somewhere else. I'm trying to make it look like a real fight.
Well, Ken, what do you, again, from a talent perspective, bro, what do you do when you're put in that position? Because let's face it, bro, it's Shawn Michaels. He's got a history. He's got seniority. He's got all those things. But on the other side of the coin, Ken Anderson has to protect his character. And Ken Anderson has to do what he does because, listen, hey, you're all independent contractors. You didn't set up the system. That system was set up 50 years ago. So it's every man for themselves. Yep. Ken, what do you do when, you want to respect the Shawn Michaels? It's Shawn Michaels, but, bro, I got to get over it. I have a family to feed. What do you do when you're put in that spot?
I just had to make the decision, I'm going to – I stood my ground, and I don't know if that's necessarily the right decision or not, but that's what I did. I sort of stood my ground. I was respectful as much I love Shawn Michaels. He was one of my favorite wrestlers. When I told you that I didn't watch wrestling as a kid, but when I found it, I went back and did my homework. And Shawn Michaels was one of the guys that I just loved. I love the way he sells. I love everything about him. So being in the ring with him was a dream. And then when he's telling you that you're doing everything wrong, it's but in my head, I got stubborn. I was like, well, but I worked with Taker, Booker T, Rey Mysterio, Fit Finlay, Chris Benoit, Kane, all these other guys. They didn't have a problem with it. Why am I now doing things wrong? Everything that brought me to the dance in the first place, now I'm being told that it's wrong. So I sort of stood my ground and I just kept doing it. And, there was one time we had a 3-segment match on Raw. And you can actually look this up on YouTube. It's there. During one of the breaks, I had him in a body vice with my legs. And we were sitting on the ground. And I was just kind of mushing his face a little bit. Real light with my fingers. We were in break. I didn't need to be real physical with him or anything like that. And I remember he got pissed at me. That's my face. I breathe out of my face. Get your hands out of my face. And we're in,
Ken, let me ask you this, again, and I'm such a mark because I'm a writer. So that's why I'm so interested in when you're put in these types of situations, the thought process and how you deal with it. Now, I was reading, and I'm going to use this Shawn Michaels case as an instance. And you're an intelligent guy. That's why I can have this conversation with you because I know that you know what's going on. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was reading down the line that part of your, you've commented this on the past, part of your, the reason why you were released because Randy Orton got hurt in a match with you. You felt kind of Randy Orton. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did not get hurt in that match, but he pretended like he was hurt.
Okay, well, he basically complained that you hurt him. You were too stiff. Went to Vince. Kind of got Cena on board. And here, next thing we know, Ken, the writers have nothing for you.
Yeah.
But look, Ken, here's what I want to ask you. You're an intelligent guy. Let's go back to Shawn Michaels. You know, we're independent contractors, bro. You know, I'm in this 5 minutes that I have with you, or 3-segment match, 15 minutes. My job is I need to get over in this 15 minutes. And by getting over, I have to stay true to my character. I have money invested in my brand. So if you don't like me covering up, I don't know what to tell you. That's my character. But there's also the rational side of you that knows, okay, if I don't do it his way, this is Shawn Michaels now. Is he going to go to Vince? Is he going to bury me? Am I not going to do the next house show loop? I mean, this stuff has to be going through your mind. So, like, how do you make that decision?
Honestly, that stuff, I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think it mattered as much. I was always like, if you just treat people with respect, work hard, and do your thing, you'll bump into people that disagree with you from time to time, but overall it'll end up well. And you know, that's just not the case in a lot of times. I mean,
that's the boy from Wisconsin talking right there. That ain't gonna cut it in the WWE, bro.
Or just in life, I think. You know,
right.
like,
You're right. In
the world, we give lip service to the idea that we like for people to be honest, but the minute somebody is honest, they bury them. They try to get them, you know, boycotted or fired or whatever. It's just not the way the real world actually operates.
Yeah, Ken, I had the same experience at WCW. I knew they were politicking. I knew every single thing that was going on behind my back, and I knew I had one or two choices. They're paying me to write the best show that I can. That's all that I care about. And at the end of the day, this is how I looked at it. If they believe those that are politicking and burying me behind my back, let them go with them, because I know what the outcome is. You know, people that politic basically don't have the ability, so they have to cheat to get ahead. Unfortunately, once they win and they're in the spot they politic to be, now they have to deliver.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have politicked if they deserved that spot. So now when they get in the spot and they can't deliver, well, now they've exposed themselves. So that was always my theory. But let's go to the Randy Orton situation now. Did you know there was a problem before it got to the Vince level? Did he have a conversation with you? Did somebody else smarten you up? How did you get a feel for what was going on?
Yeah, he told me in the ring, he put me in a rear chin lock. We were getting ready to go home, and he said, "Give me a belly to back suplex. Give it to me quick. Give me like a snap belly to back. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. We went. Boom. Now in that situation, I'm gonna expose the business here a little bit, but if somebody gives me a belly to back suplex, I am jumping just as much as they're picking me. They're just guiding me. I'm not, you know, as the person giving the belly to back suplex, you're not actually doing much work. Mm-hmm. So I tagged out, got to the back, and when I got to the back, Randy came through and he was holding his neck and, you know, cursing and swearing and, "Oh, you dropped me right on my head, Ken," you know, right in front of everybody. Now, for one thing, in my personal experience, I was always told, if you got a problem with somebody, you know what, wrestling sometimes hurts. Sometimes you're going to get a boo-boo. Take it somewhere else. Take it in if you have to, take it in the showers and fight it out, duke it out, but don't do it in front of other people. Mm-hmm. So that happened or whatever. And it was my first day back after being gone. I had been gone for 10 months with a shoulder injury. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, you have all these fears when you're coming back off an injury like that. You've been off the TV. Are they going to remember me? Am I going to be terrible? Am I going to hurt somebody? And so now I'm coming through the curtain. I was just in the main event on Raw. You know, my first night back in the Staples Center, or it wasn't in the, it was in the Staples Center. It was in LA. And, you know, one of my friends, the guy that I'd been riding up and down the road with for the last 2.5 years, literally, is telling me that I hurt him. I felt terrible. And he went back and got ice packs on his neck and shoulders and all taped up and all this stuff. And basically like lectured me for 30 minutes. I sat there and got a 30-minute lecture. And I never once piped up and like fired back because I didn't know at the time. You got to take somebody's word for what it is. You know, I'm assuming that this guy who's my friend is not lying to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's not telling me that he was hurt or, blaming me wrongfully. So man, I'm sorry. I apologize profusely. I left. I went home the next morning. I remember the first thing I did was I ran upstairs and I hit the DVR and I watched the match over and over. And I watched that spot over and I had slow-mo on my VCR on my DVR and I slowed it frame by frame by frame. And like, you can see Clint, because when he jumps, he turns to the side and he comes down and he lands. And I'm telling you, his from his shoulders to his ass is as flat as can be. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see like the shadow on the mat where his neck like doesn't come into contact. You can actually see the shadow stop about a few inches above the ring
mm-hmm.
and then pop back up again. And I called him right away and I was like, hey man, you said that I dropped you on your neck, but I just watched the tape. And like, you landed flat, man. I don't know what happened. Maybe you got a stinger somehow, whatever. And so later on that day, he called me up and he said, I just went out into the truck with Johnny, which is weird to me. Again, like if I wanted to look, I'm not going to call the head of talent relations in to go. That's just
bro.
like,
yeah.
So yeah. And he said, well, actually, we looked at it from a different camera angle, and you can see that I landed high on my shoulders and my traps. And I thought, like, whatever. I mean, and then a couple days later, I got the call from Johnny basically saying, he called me up. I was sitting at home, and he's like, hey, Kenny, I got bad news for you. And I said, really? I immediately knew what was going down. And I said, really? And he said, yep. And then I said, what's the reason? And he said they weren't happy with the way things went on Monday night, and they've decided not to go with the Ken Kennedy character anymore.
Now, Ken, was that, as you look at that now and really try to understand it, and Ken, let's face it, bro, rational people, there's a lot you can't understand in wrestling, because a lot of it is not rational. But looking back at it now and kind of putting the pieces together and having time to think about it, I mean, so do you think coming off of an injury, this is your first match back? Do you think there was kind of a plan in place where they did not want to use you when you were healthy enough to come back?
Are they being the creative?
No. Matt, whether it was a pay deal with management, I mean, in other words, was there a plan in place where, okay, now I'm Randy Orton and I'm going to say Ken hurt me, so that gives us the reason to get out of his contract or get out of his deal? Do you think it was a situation like that?
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. And I hate to speculate about stuff like that just because, like, I used to be big on conspiracy theories, and sort of the more I've thought about, it's really hard to pull off a conspiracy. It's totally possible. I can't think of why these guys would all kind of go behind. And I mean, again, I want to work with people that are good, and I want to work. I don't know why people would gang up and get rid of somebody. And I've heard that theory or whatever, and I really don't know. And to be honest with you, I sort of don't care anymore because a lot of things have happened in my life since then that wouldn't have happened had I been there. And you know what? Me worrying about it, me, thinking about it very often does nothing for it.
Yeah.
Just the only person affected by it is me. Randy doesn't give a shit about it.
Did you ever speak to him again after that, or that was kind of it?
You know what? Actually, so for the longest time there, for some reason, I kept butt dialing him. I was like, the last person that, I mean, I would pull my phone out of my pocket and it would be like calling Randy Orton. I was like, what? So I deleted his number out of my phone. Because I didn't want that to happen. I don't want to.
Meanwhile, the guy thinks you're calling him and hanging up like a fifth grader, right, bro?
And then so I deleted the number out of my phone. And then I'm sure you remember this. There was a night where you had me go out to the ring and cut a promo, kind of a shoot deal on WWE in my time there. And I came back through the curtain. I remember you said, "Bro, that is not what I was looking for." And then you sort of like dug it out of me. You were like, "Look, this is what happened over there. Like, you need to go out there and tell that story." And so I remember we had to go out there and do it again. Mm-hmm. And my solution for that was I told the people, I was just honest with them and said, like, "We're going to do this again." So I cut that promo. And actually, when it aired, I get a text message, "Hey, great promo tonight." And it was from a number. And I was like, who is this? And it was from Randy.
Well, that's cool. That's cool, bro. I mean, that's cool,
Yeah, absolutely. And we exchanged a few texts back and forth, but honestly, like I don't have any ill will or animosity towards anybody.
Well, Ken, it's bro. Also, it's like it's wrestling. You know what I can't tell you how many times I've said it's wrestling with stories like that. It is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. It's part of what we all dealt with. Ken, I have to ask you something. This is gonna be a little touchy, okay? Because this was a point in time that I became very, very, very concerned, and I really want. I never really spoke to you about it. Some things, bro, like it's hard talking about, but time has passed. You know what I mean? Ken, I remember there was a time at TNA where I started working with you closely, and you were really starting to hit your stride. And, we were making sure, or I was making sure anyway, that, every week there was something special that you were doing that was getting the character over, separating you from the rest of the pack. And I can even remember you coming to me and saying, bro, you're starting to understand me, and we were really starting to work on the same page, and the stuff was really starting to become good. Okay. Yeah. But Ken, I can remember, and this is from my point of view, bro, shortly after that time, as we're doing this, I remember, man, you took just maybe one of the most vicious headshots I've ever seen in my life. And Ken, when I say that, you got to understand, I was there when Rock hit Mick with the chair 97 times. Okay. But the fact that, the shot that you took was not supposed to happen that way. It was a vicious injury, man. It was bad. Okay. And Ken, I can remember, man, working with you after that, and you weren't the same. Like it just, you were just off, and I knew like it wasn't the same Ken Anderson prior to that head trauma. I mean, I knew it wasn't. It was almost like two different people. And at that time now, I'm starting to get concerned for you as a human being. Because listen, Ken, on a very small scale, when I was at WCW, when I was a performer, bro, I suffered a concussion. And I struggled for a long time with post-concussion syndrome. It was nothing like the injury I saw you get that night. Yeah. So like at that point in time, it's like, screw it that he's not cutting the promo the best that he can. I was really concerned about your well-being. Can you talk to me about that time a little bit?
Yeah, that probably is the worst injury that I've ever sustained, I would say. And it was a chair shot to the back of the head. I caught the rim of the chair. And again, accidents happen. Things happen. It was an accident. I don't hold anybody accountable, or I don't care. It is what it is. It happened. But I remember the minute that it happened, I didn't lose consciousness or anything like that. I knew what had happened, and I put my hand on the back of my head. And I remember AJ and Bobby Roode and Frankie and Chris Daniels were out there, and there was like 5 or 6 people around the ring doing like sort of a lumberjack kind of thing or something. And I remember grabbing my head, and I just, mother effer. And AJ came over to me and he's like, buddy, are you okay? And I was like, I knew that was gonna freaking happen, you know. And I was pissed about it for a second. Went to the back, and a minute I walked through the curtain, I was like, I'm fine. I'm not gonna sell it. I've always been you know what? Again, sometimes wrestling hurts, sometimes you're gonna get a boo-boo.
Right.
And I remember I sat down and got stitched up. The doc was asking me, there was a doctor on hand, and he asked me, did you lose consciousness? Nope. Well, then you don't have a concussion. Okay. So went home the next week. I think I had a week off because I had the stitches in my head. And then the next week, I did a house show in Battle Creek, Michigan. And I'm working AJ. And we're in the back, and we're putting the match together. And we put it all together, and we went out, and literally 2 minutes into the match, I couldn't remember a thing. I literally completely blacked out. And it was really scary, to be honest with you. And I would ask him, like, what's next? And he'd be like, you know, tackle, drop down, leapfrog, drop kick, or whatever. And I do the tackle, the drop down, and then I go, what's next? What's coming next? And I couldn't remember. One move at a time, that's all I could do. Jeez. So we just took it home real quick, and I walked to the back, and I was like, I don't know what the hell's happening to me, but I can't remember anything. I ended up going to the doctor, and the doctor was like, what do you mean you don't have a concussion? What do you mean they said that you don't have a concussion? And he like bumped his head on the wall behind him, and he was like, that's concussion. He goes, anytime your brain suffers a vibration of some sort, it's a concussion technically. You got whaled in the back of the head with a steel chair. You're concussed. And so I ended up getting, I think he said, you know, take 3 months off. You need to take 3 months off. You need to heal. You need to recover. And I hated that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like, I want to get out there. I want to be in there. I want to wrestle. I want to perform. And yeah, when I came back, I still feel to this day sometimes that I'm still sort of affected by it in little ways. Some days are fuzzier than others. And to be honest with you, I mean, I've suffered a lot. I think wrestlers in general suffer concussions all the time. Every time you take a bump, you get.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What your brain, like he said, your brain gets jarred. That's a concussion. Ken, was that memory loss like only during that time with AJ, or now when you're taking the time off, does it reoccur?
I remember for a really long time just feeling very, very fuzzy, and I didn't have motivation. I didn't have a whole lot of motivation. I wasn't able to get in the gym really. When I did, I was just sort of going through the motions. I think looking back on it, I was probably a little depressed, and started to get like sort of disenchanted with the wrestling industry for some reason. Mm-hmm. And certain things frustrated me, and yeah, it was just. It was a weird time.
You know, Ken, I have to ask you, man, because again, I'm not one of the boys. Please, I couldn't be. But okay, Ken, during that time, so now you have the thing with AJ, you go to the doctor, you're going home, you're feeling this way. I mean, Ken, is as a performer and knowing now how serious that injury is, I would have to think you have to be scared. You know, you have to, like, this is what I do for a living, and it almost has to be like, when am I going to wrestle again? Almost has to be secondary to, am I ever going to feel like myself again? I mean, does that go through your mind, especially when it is something as serious as a concussion? Bro, it's not like I blew out my knee. I blew out my hip, but my head's okay. I know when I went through my concussion, when my head was effed up, it was like every day, am I ever going to be the same I was before this happened? Were you going through a lot of that, or did you just think it's just going to pass?
Yeah, I just thought I'll get over this. This is a temporary thing. I never really, I didn't feel at the time that I felt sorry for myself. Looking back, I probably did. I was just in that weird funk. But no, it was. I think it. At some point, you just come to the realization that you need to take as good a care as you possibly can of your body, of your brain. And I just started to, I was tired and I didn't feel like working out, but I was like, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to push it. And that in and of itself, I think it stimulates your brain. And I started reading books again, and that stimulates your brain. And I don't know. I don't know if that's, if that's that seemed to be the answer for me. I don't know. Correlation doesn't equal causation, but
Ken, I want to ask you this now. Listen, first of all, I want to promote TNA. I want to remind everybody TNA is on Destination America, 9:00 Wednesday nights. I definitely want to get that plug in. I want to get that out there. But I also want to talk about reality. Okay. Obviously there's a lot of speculation around the future of TNA. Is there going to be a TNA after September? Is Destination America going to opt out after a year? I mean, there's been talk for months. Nobody really knows anything. Okay. Now, obviously, my life is not going to be affected by whether there's a TNA or not. And a lot of people talk.
Wait a minute! You've been writing the storylines for us.
Yeah, please don't get me in trouble. Yeah, I have, Ken, but it's a secret, so don't tell anybody. Anyway, but Ken, here's what I want to ask you now, because a lot has changed for Ken Anderson now. Because now, you hear with everybody else hears, and I mean, let's face it, it is a big question mark. So it is an unknown. You really don't know. So now, Ken, here you are in a position that, okay, I was at the WWE. Yep. I was, I was released from there. It had a little something to do with Randy. Randy's still there. Okay. Now, on the other side of the coin, don't get me wrong, Ken Anderson can make a living the next 10 years, going to independent circuit, autograph signings, Japan. He can do all that. But it's like now Ken Anderson, has 2 twins at home. The situation, life on the road is a little different now for Ken Anderson. Now, I know it's wrestling, bro, and wrestlers have to deal with a lot of peaks and valleys. I get that. But with such a big unknown in front of you, and really like, okay, come October 1st, I really don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing. Is that having a big effect on you, Ken? Or is it kind of like, you know what? I have no control over it. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah, the latter, actually. Like I have control over what I do in the ring and the way that I promote myself and the way that I treat people and that kind of stuff. Worrying about whether TNA is going to be, I have no control over what Destination America does or thinks about our company. And I have no control over what Dixie Carter and John Gaborik do in the office as far as business decisions go for the company. All I can do is focus on what Ken Anderson does in the ring. And that's really, again, I can worry about it all I want. The only person affected by that is really me, I think. With that being said, TNA considerably cut back their schedule in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And I'm wrestling in an average 4 days a month for TNA. We do all of our TV tapings in that one chunk, knock it out, and then I'm free to do whatever I want for the rest of the month. I'm free to either sit at home and take care of the kids, or I do a ton of indie bookings and things like that. In 1 month alone, I think it was March or April, I wrestled for TNA 4 days, and I did 21 days for other like independent promotions.
Wow, holy crap, man.
Well, the thing is there's tons of work out there. The indies are doing better than they've ever done. And I'm my own boss. There's no stress.
Yeah.
Somebody picks you up at the airport, takes you from point A to point B. You work out, you do this. There's no politics. There's no, I don't have to pitch storylines or anything like that. It's just, which I've never been good at anyways. I feel like I'm not the creative type. I would not be good in a creative environment. I can't do what you do. I think I might be mistaken, but I think I can take what you give me and make the best out of it.
Make it better. Yeah. Nobody knows your character better than you. I say that all the time. Yeah. That's why, like, I go like bananas. You know, when I watch the WWE now, like it's so clear that, you know, so many guys are afraid to go off script, and like they almost sound like they've memorized the lines. And I mean, man, like I know with me, when I worked with talent, you know, I'd write the Ken Anderson promo, but then I know nobody knows Ken Anderson better than Ken Anderson. So I'm going to give him this promo. He's going to Ken Anderson it up to a level that I can't. That's how the character is going to get over. When you give somebody a promo and you say, bro, you do this A to Z and don't go off it, I don't know how you ever get anybody over that way, Ken.
Yeah, directors don't do that in Hollywood. One of the things I think I've always thought, and it's always kind of driven me a little crazy, is that I don't understand why wrestlers don't study acting. Mm-hmm. It's just like one of the best things I ever learned in acting class was actors aren't acting. It's the art of looking like you're not acting. It's putting yourself in that scenario and that's exactly what wrestlers do.
Yep.
Yeah, and directors don't tell somebody you need to look up and to the left when you say this word, and you're like, no, it's you look at Denzel Washington, in my opinion, is hands down the best actor. And it's obviously subjective, but he's amazing to me. And if you watch Denzel Washington give a performance in a movie and then watch him give an interview with David Letterman or Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel on the couch, it's the same person. He doesn't, it's not it's just him putting himself in that scenario and just doing it well. So yeah, I guess.
Ken, I could not have done my job if it wasn't a collaborated effort. I mean, I couldn't have. I couldn't have dreamed of just writing something here. You have to do this, because I don't understand. Listen, I understand power. I understand wanting to be in control, but nobody can tell me you're going to get the best product. You're going to get the best out of the talent if you put them inside of a box and tell them this is what you have to say. Don't go off script. I mean, I don't get that for the life.
That's what I loved about working with you. Was that was always this is what I want you to say. Here's where we need to get to. This stuff right here is just suggestions. You know, every once in a while you'd say, like, you need to hit this line, you need to hit this, but other than that, do it the way Ken Anderson would do it, and that is empowering. And it's we're working as a team. Exactly, man. And again, the end game is to make it the best it can be. If it's a dictatorship and I write a promo and I give it to you and say, bro, you got to memorize this word for word, what I'm saying is you can't make this any better. I've made this the best it can possibly be. You can't make it any better. Bro, that's pompous. I mean, that's about like as arrogant as you can get. That's why, like, I don't understand the whole mindset with that. Hey, you know, I want to talk to you about some, Ken, because I'm hoping to clear somebody's name. And I didn't agree with this. This really bothered me, okay? Ken, the guy I probably keep in touch with the most, Ken, listen, in wrestling, people tend to be your friend when you can help them. When you can no longer help them, the phone doesn't tend to ring as much as it does. So, like, you can really count your true friends when it comes to wrestling, like, in one hand. Okay. Yeah. The one guy who's really, kept in touch with me and been in contact with me probably more than anybody has been Bully Ray. And obviously, bro, we're so similar. The Italian background, growing up on Long Island. I mean, I helped them get into the WWE. So, like, there's such a vast history there, right? Yeah. I got to tell you, and you hit upon it earlier in a little scenario, in a different scenario, but, you basically said it is old school. Listen, when two wrestlers have a problem, and I witnessed it thousands of times, you go in the locker room, you shut the door. When that door opens and the two wrestlers come out, it's over. Yeah. Whatever happens in there wasn't for me to see, wasn't for anybody else to see. But the boys governing the boys. That was always that was the law of the land. That
I saw that at WWE, WCW, TNA. That never changed. All of a sudden now I'm reading this week, and it really pissed me off. Not because he's my buddy, but now former wrestlers like literally taking shots at, Bully Ray hurt me. He purposely hurt people, this, that, and the other thing. And one guy went as far as to say, oh, Bully, I'd say this right to your face. I live in Vegas. Come out here. I'll tell you to face. Okay. So let me get this straight. Rico, whatever your freaking name is, Bully Ray's going to actually buy a plane ticket to fly to Las Vegas, track you down so you could tell him it's his face. Meanwhile, you worked with the guy. You could have told him to his face 50,000 times. Right. But the road I'm going down is this. I saw it completely different, Bubba Ray. Now, don't get me wrong. When you're a New Yorker, you have that New York in you, and you're stubborn, and you always want to do things your way. Mm-hmm. But I witnessed, Bubba trying to help the younger guys going to him. And I love the stuff that you and him were doing together. I really enjoyed it. I love when it's two pros. I love when one pro is trying to outdo the other pro, and you can see each guy lifting up each other's game. To me, that's when wrestling's at its best. That's what was happening for me with you and Bully. What were your experiences, working with him? Because I'm asking because I think he's getting a bum rap. It pisses me off. I think this guy handled it the wrong way. And I really enjoyed the work that you guys did together.
Thank you for saying that, because that's probably one of my favorite things that I've done in wrestling, and one of my favorite feuds that I've had, top 10. When I first met Bully, when I came to TNA, I really met him. I had met him a couple times with WWE, but it was just in passing. When I met him, I didn't like him. I heard that he was a bully and, this kind of stuff. And it was really just things that I had heard, not any experiential knowledge or anything like that. So when I started getting to know him, I realized that he's just old school. He's very old school. He doesn't just give respect to people. Respect is earned. Mm-hmm. But it's not like a dictatorship where he just expects everybody to give him respect. He also earns it. However, if you're a new guy and you don't show him respect, he doesn't have any time for you. That's it, period. But he's not going to go out of his way to bully you or belittle you or do anything like that. In my experience, I haven't seen that. Yeah. I always heard too, he's stiff, he's snug, he'll beat you up. He never touched me. Working with him was absolutely fantastic. And he and I became very, very close, and he's one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth. Yeah. When he doesn't let many people in, but when he does, it is he'll give you the shirt off his back, literally. And when we did our little program together, he came to me and he was like, what can I say? What can I not say? And I said, honestly, this is wrestling. We're telling stories of good versus evil. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. And he was like, well, what if I, said something about your wife or whatever? Please go ahead, say stuff about my wife. My wife was pregnant at the time. I was like, yes, because there are people in the real world that would behave that way. And he talked about dropping my pregnant wife on her head and, pile driving my kids when they were born and things like that. But he asked me first, he was like, are you sure you're okay with this? Are you okay? And I said, absolutely. Go there. Let's go there. So you know what I love? I love, there are some guys and people it's unbelievable to me how they don't get this. Really old school guys want you to believe the gimmick. Yeah. But Bubba likes when people fear him and they believe the gimmick and they're afraid to approach him and they are afraid to talk to him. Another guy who was just the exact same way, freaking Scott Steiner.
The way I used to handle Scott, Ken, it's like, he used to be pissed off. He'd find me and he's blowing snot and he's ready to cut the promo and this and that. And I remember I would stand there, I would watch him, I would not say a word, and he'd get it all out. And I'd basically say, okay, bro, are you done now? And like, he would just bust out laughing. But like, old school guys want you, bro. You don't know how many promoters have told me, Bubba is an a-hole, Bubba is this, Bubba is that. And I'm sitting there saying, no, bro, Bubba wants you to believe he's an a-hole. It's just.
Well, he also wants you to like buck up to him a little bit and challenge. Like if he says something like, yeah, like just buck up to him a little bit, because then he'll respect you. All right, you're not a pussy. You're not a pushover.
But I will say this for the record, Ken, friend or no friend, this whole Velvet thing, it's an absolute work. There's no way in the world somebody like a Velvet Sky would
go after.
Would be attracted to this Gavone Mameluke. It is an absolute work. And that's what Bubba does, bro. Everything with him is a work. So he has everybody believing he's going out with the hottest girl in the wrestling industry. But I'm here to tell everybody it's an absolute work.
I love it.
Now, Ken, I got to ask you, this is so off topic. Okay, are you cool with this? Are you ready to go off topic with me?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Ken, I'm a Christian guy.
Yep.
Okay, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Part of my makeup and like one of the things that is a big fabric of my life, because I think I enjoy it. Okay. I believe that there was a God that created us all individually with a different purpose. And my belief is the meaning of life is we are on an ongoing search to find out what that purpose is. Because when we know what that purpose is, and the stars align with the sun and aligns with the moon and everything is in the proper alignment, life is good. So we're on a lifelong journey looking for the purpose for us as individuals. What did God put us on this earth for? So that's why, to me, it's always, trying to make myself a better person, to find those answers. And what is this experience trying to tell me? What is that experience trying to tell me? I'm constantly on search. And quite frankly, Ken, like that keeps me busy. It keeps me preoccupied. So I like that. Now, I was reading, and Gunner, of all people, said that, and I love Gunner. I love him. He should have put his foot right through that guy's chest. Now, Gunner said in an interview, I don't know why Gunner's saying this, to be honest with you, but Gunner said that you are an atheist. Is that correct?
That is true. Yeah.
Okay. And that's great. Hey, Ken, I'm not here to convert you, but what I want to know is honestly, like having that, what is the viewpoint? Like being an atheist, like what is the belief?
Okay. So it's actually, I think there's a confusion with the word atheism, and it's not a belief. It's a lack of a belief.
Okay.
So it's like, I don't say that I'm a non-stamp collector. I'm just not a stamp collector. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's basically, I am not saying that no God exists. I'm not positing that like they're absolutely positively God's fake. He's made up. That's it. He doesn't exist. What I'm saying is like at this time, I don't have enough evidence to believe it. I don't believe it. So therefore, like I think belief is active. You either believe something or you don't. Even if you're unsure of something, you still don't actively believe in it. So therefore, I am without theism. I'm an atheist. So it's not really a hard like God doesn't exist. Now there are those atheists who say like I'm as certain that God doesn't exist as I am that the sun will rise and set tomorrow, and that kind of stuff. But I am open to the idea that I'm wrong about everything in life, and I guess I try to just. Part of the reason why I started my podcast was these were like I had a lot of Christian friends. Most of my friends are Christian. Like Gunner is one of my best friends in the world, and he is as devout as they come. My wife is a fundamentalist Christian. She runs a Christian business. And I felt like more and more I was having people say, hey, you need this. And when I would bring up questions that I had,
they couldn't answer.
People don't want to talk about it. They just want to say, dude, you need to do this. And then when I would say, like, well, what about this, this, and this? Well, I don't know. You have to talk to a theologian. Well, no. Don't tell me that I'm like, it's okay to have a discussion about it, but don't say you are absolutely wrong, but I don't know why. You're just wrong.
And I can respect that, and I hear exactly where you're coming from. But let me ask you this: with that mindset, which I can totally understand, because listen, as a Christian, you know, we are believing something we can't see. You know, I mean, we accept that we are believing something. That's where the belief comes in. But without that, because you know, again, the proof just hasn't been there for you. Is there a purpose overall for life? Like when you look at your life and the life of Ken Anderson and, you know, the woman you married and the 2 kids that you just had and what I'm doing for a career, like, is there a purpose or is it kind of just a day-to-day journey?
All of those things that you said before about, you know, being a good person and self-evaluating and things like that. Like I feel all those. I was going to say, like, as an atheist, because you started out, you said I'm a Christian guy. I was going to say, like, I'm an atheist guy, and I believe all those things that you just said. I just don't believe that that a God is necessary, or the belief in a God is necessary to be and do all those things. I still find great awe and wonder in, you know, traveling and seeing the earth and you know, mountainscapes and lakes and rivers and valleys, and my children, I look at them, that's amazing. And the fact that I'm here on this earth, that I'm even here, I feel like I'm lucky. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, I won the lottery. Not only did I win the lottery to be alive, period, but I happen to, you know, grow up and live in a pretty damn good country too. Yeah. Like there's so I do believe all those things, and I'm constantly trying to, I guess, I don't know if it's figuring out the meaning of life. It's just, how can I be a good person? Yeah. How can I leave a mark on this earth in one, you know, as best as I can. I think for me, I don't believe in an afterlife, but I do believe that the way that you treat people and the sort of legacy that you leave behind, and hopefully I'll pass some knowledge on to my kids and they'll be good people. And that to me is an afterlife in and of itself. Got you. Okay, fair enough. Hey, Ken, I got to ask you this. I'm going to ask you this. By the way, I love talking about that stuff, and I would love to have you on my podcast. Bro, you got to bring me on the podcast so we don't got to talk about this wrestling crap. Yeah. All right. I got to ask you one last question, though. Listen. Yeah. And I'm glad you said he's a good friend. I've always loved Gunner. I listen, not for anything, and I'm not here to bury TNA, but I don't know how you let a Gunner go. I don't know. I'm a firm believer, bro, especially in wrestling. When you got somebody who's the real McGilla, like that's the most valuable asset you can have. Like when I look at Gunner, like I immediately, like, I don't want to piss this guy off. I don't want to get this guy mad. If this guy ever got mad, he'd freaking kill me. You don't have that a lot in wrestling. And like, that's why I loved Gunner. And then, bro, when you put his background into play, you got the real McGilla. But here's something that concerns me a little bit now. You know, this incident that just took place with Gunner. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Bro, I'm kind of afraid that in Gunner's mind, like, he knows every single person by name and by description of anybody that ever said anything bad about him. And he's got this hit list. Like, he's gonna start big booting people in the front row, like, bro. And now I'm starting to think about his military career. Hey, this guy was in hand-to-hand combat. Like they had a wanted list of guys they were picking off. Bro, does he have like a card catalog in his mind of everybody who ever said anything bad about it, and he knows them by face, and one by one he's gonna start picking these people off, bro? He's gonna start sniping them, you know? Yeah, no, that's funny. I don't think that's actually what happened. I haven't talked to Gunner since the incident happened. And it's funny because I don't read dirt sheets at all. But good for you. Amen. I stopped 7 years ago. Good for you. It started driving me insane. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I haven't read dirt sheets in 7 years. And my life hasn't been affected in one way.
Good for you.
As far as
Absolutely.
we know, and I'm sure people have written terrible stuff about me. It hasn't affected me in the least. But I did happen to, something came across my timeline yesterday on Twitter or something like that about Gunner. Gunner posted something on Facebook, and so I was like, what is he talking about? And I went and looked it up, and it seemed to me like he was just working, and this guy got up in his face, and he, kicked him back. And I tell you, it's always been a rule in the wrestling industry. You cross that line, you cross that barrier, you come near me, you're trespassing, and I don't know what you're going to do to me.
And let me tell you something. These Nimrods, and I think it's the fault of the wrestling business, to be honest with you. I think we've created the problem ourselves. These Nimrods are starting to convince themselves that they're part of the show. It started with the ridiculous chants. Then you see that full sale crowd at NXT that literally run the show. Literally in the last month, there have been 5 different instances with fans crossing the line. And I was just talking about this the other day, Ken. The more and more the fans believe that they're part of the show, which is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, I don't go to a baseball game and bring my glove and get on the field. Okay, I go to watch the professionals play, and I respect what they do. So the whole idea that these idiot wrestling fans think they're part of a show, and here's the unfortunate thing, bro. I'm telling you, somebody's going to get hurt, and somebody's going to get hurt real bad. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that it's going to take something like that for these fans to understand their freaking place.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they should stage something where a fan jumps the guardrail and just gets the shit pounded out of them.
That's not a bad idea, bro, because I'm telling you, it's happening like literally now. It's happening once every 3 weeks. It's happened so many times. They threw a suitcase at Roman Reigns. This past week on Raw, somebody jumped the barricade, was walking down the aisle with Seth Rollins. Bro, I'm telling you, somebody's going to get hurt, and it's going to be bad. And all the heat's going to go on the wrestling business.
I think it's similar to of course it's going to go on the wrestling business. It's never on the fans. I think it's similar to the situation that we have going on with these school shootings and these theater shootings and all this other. You get some nut job that is going to kill himself anyway, so he's going to go take a bunch of people out. The thing is like, we put these people on the cover of Time magazine, on the cover of Rolling Stone. They're splashed for days and days and days. Their face is plastered on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. And so to me, that just ensures that the next idiot nut job that wants to kill himself is going to say, you know what? If I'm going to go out, I might as well go out with a bang and be famous.
Kenny, you want to know something that, the reason, the fact that you're bringing this right up now blows me away, because this just happened to me yesterday, okay? I live in Colorado. I don't live too far away from the Aurora shootings, okay? I don't know if you saw this or not yesterday, but on TMZ, Ken, the Aurora Police Department finally released all the photos of the case. So not only did they release, Ken, all the crime scene photos, they released all the photos of inside this lunatic's apartment. And if you can remember, Ken, the guy had the place booby-trapped because he wanted to blow it up when the police came in. So now, bro, on TMZ, they're releasing these pictures, and you're literally seeing how the guy booby-trapped his apartment. You see what he did. And I'm sitting there saying, can somebody explain to me why these photos would be made public for some idiot who's got the same idea in his head and is now going to go to these photos and figure out how to do it? What good comes out of putting photos like that on the internet?
I agree with you 100%. It's like, there used to be a book called The Anarchist's Cookbook that you could figure out how to do all this stuff or whatever. You don't need that anymore. It's the news does it for you. Like you said, it's insane. And to me, it's when it happens, it should be, I think, centered around the victims. Like the news story, if there's any news story, it should be centered around the victims and how those victims are going to be taken care of. And and things like that. The guy who did it in the first place, his face should never be seen on TV ever. You shouldn't even say his name.
Yeah, Ken, bro, it's as simple as this. Like, if you notice this, like Major League Baseball, bro, and they instituted this 20 years ago. When a guy runs on the field, they never show the guy running on the field. Right. Because in their minds, if we show the guy running on the field, everybody's going to be running on. It's that simple, bro. It's really that simple. But like you said, we glorify the guy, that committed the crime, and then you got these other idiots looking for their 15 minutes of fame. And
well, I think one of the differences now is that everybody has a camera on them, right? It has a good video camera and can take video. It's the Major League Baseball and the NFL can turn their cameras all they want. It's that you got 20,000 people sitting there in those stadiums, or 80,000 people. Somebody's bound to film it, and they're going to put it on social media. They're going to upload it to YouTube. And
Are you a fan of social media, Ken? Like, I mean, Twitter and stuff like that. Like, how do you feel about that? How do you use it?
Yeah, I do. I use it a lot. I try to be positive as much as I can. A lot of people use social media to spout negativity. I think.
God, yeah, yeah.
It's just brutal. Like, shut up. You're the guy that's having a bad day.
Yeah, right.
I try to be positive. I try to, post pictures. And I like Instagram a lot because Instagram allows me to, type up one thing, take one picture or a video, and then write up a little synopsis of it, and then I post it to Twitter and Facebook at the same time, so I don't have to ever.
See, Ken, I haven't gotten to that. I haven't gotten to the Instagram level yet. I'm still trying to figure out, these basic Facebook and Twitter. Ken, listen, I'm glad we had this conversation today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did as well.
I absolutely did. Yeah, I'm so glad.
Can you tell us all about this podcast now? Tell us about social media, where we could get a hold of you. I'll hit TNA again when you're done, but tell us about this, because I want to see the podcast now. I didn't even know it was out there.
Yeah. So the podcast is called Push the Button. That's what we try to do, is push people's buttons, and like I said, talk about things that are hot button issues. Anything from the 10 Commandments to Edward Snowden, when the Edward Snowden thing was happening, we sort of dissected that, to religious freedom, to we just had an episode when we did one on feminism, and whether that's an effective tool in our society today. And it's, like I said, it's called Push the Button, and you can find it on iTunes or Stitcher, or you can go directly to dvmpe.com. And the guy's got a plethora of other podcasts, most of them dealing with television shows. They talk about Gotham, and they talk about whatever the new hot shows are. Mm-hmm. And social media, my Instagram is Mr. Ken Anderson. Mr. is spelled out M-I-S-T-E-R, Ken Anderson. And my Twitter is at Mr. Ken Anderson, just M-R Ken Anderson. And my Facebook is just for friends, and that's one thing that I like to keep to myself, is just for friends and coworkers and people that I'm close with. So.
Hey, Ken, have you ever had how long have you been doing the podcasting?
This is our second year, so we've done about 26 episodes.
Wow. Where the heck have I been? That's your fault for not putting it over, bro. If you're putting it over, I'd know about it. Hey, have you ever done any shows on conspiracy theories? Oh, look at that.
There she is. That's my daughter.
Oh, my gosh, Kenny. She is gorgeous, man. Hi, look at that face. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh,
all right.
You wait. You wait. My little daughter is 20 years old now, and the biggest pain in the ass diva on this face of the planet. Ken, you wait. Ken, have we ever done any? Oh my God! Look at these kids. Hey. Oh, Ken, they are gorgeous.
Hi.
Now, Ken, is it fair to say they have mommy's looks?
Absolutely.
Hey, Ken, I want to ask you, have you ever done any conspiracy theory shows on the podcast?
We have definitely talked about conspiracy theories on the podcast. I don't think we've ever done one on like specific. Well, I guess where I stand on conspiracy theories is if you get two people that commit a crime, I used to believe in conspiracy theories all the time. I listen to Alex Jones on a regular basis, and I'm actually a huge fan of Glenn Beck. I disagree with him about a lot of things, but he's sort of a conspiracy guy too. And then I started thinking about it, and I guess if two people commit a crime, if you and I say rob a bank, there is like a 98% chance that one of us is going to sing about it and tell somebody about it, and we're going to get caught. Now you're taking all these other conspiracy theories, like the 9/11 thing. It happens to be today, right? 9/11. You're talking about a conspiracy that involves thousands of people, at least hundreds of people, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Same thing goes with the medical industry, how the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry is holding down research and development that we have cures for cancer and stuff like that. I can't believe that stuff hasn't gotten out yet, if it's real.
Yeah. Well, I'd like if you're going to have me on the show, I'd like to come on the show. And I would like to defuse the Bubba Velvet Sky relationship. All the reasons why it's a work, it's a conspiracy, and it's not real. Would you be open to something like that?
That's okay. When can we do it?
Because I got to poke holes all over that thing, because no way in the world would she be going out with a guy like that. But anyway, Ken, listen, man, I had a blast. I want to do it again. I want to come on your show, bro. We could have more of a conversation. I love talking to you. Always loved working with you. I want to give them the plug. Destination America, TNA, 9 o'clock Wednesday nights. Watch Mr. Anderson. And Ken, not only thank you for this show, but thank you for all the fond memories of having the privilege and honor of working with you for so many years.
I would like to say the same thing for you. Thank you, first and foremost, but I'd like to say the same thing for you. And I'm going to take I'm going to say I disagree with a point that you made earlier. I wanted to say that when you said, I'm not one of the boys, yes, you are. This idea that only people that fall down and take bumps can be the boys is total bullshit, in my opinion, because we're a team. And, I was happy to be on that same team with you. Well,
I appreciate that, Ken. But listen, bro, I'm not taking chair shots to the head. Bro.
Well, but you're doing all kinds of other
I'm not going to hurt myself with a pencil, bro. Ken, with all due respect, Ken. But Ken, thanks for joining us. Listen, let me know about your podcast. Because I'm a fan of the show. I haven't even seen it now, but I'd love to be on it. Everybody watch it. Tell them one more time about the show.
That's Push the Button.
Push the Buttons on iTunes,
Stitcher, and it's my good friend David Vox Mullen, who's a stand-up comic, and he owns his own podcast network.
Is it weekly, Ken? Is it every two?
About every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay.
Yep.
Well, there you have it, everybody. The great Ken Anderson of TNA. And Ken, thank you so much for joining me on the Swerve today.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. And everybody, I will see you here next week.